Thank you for having us, members of the National Security Council, for your request. We are the Wolverine Cyber Task Force assigned to address this tenebrous incident. My name is Brian. I'll be going over the bluff statement and the incident overview. My colleague Maggie will provide the anticipated impact analysis, and my colleagues Nick and Chris will provide the strategic objectives and policy recommendations. The bottom line up front is that a cyber incident targeting Tenebris, which is an American company who assists airports in traveler identity screening services, recently resulted in a data leak containing biometric information and flight records of up to 14 million US and EU customers. While the full extent of this data leak is undetermined, it can be assessed with high confidence that data has been exfiltrated and at least one record has been falsified. It's important to note that this incident has and will continue to negatively affect airport security and logistics going forward. Now, the incident overview is that unknown malicious actors gain access to Tenebris systems by utilizing a vulnerability called Honey Samsonite to compromise a server and to gain access to devices in order to properly exfiltrate and modify data. Now, Honey Samsonite will be referred to as HSAM going forward in this briefing. See, HSAM has many similarities to a known exploit called Honey Badger Thief, which is actively being used by the NSA for counterintelligence purposes. Honey Badger Thief will be referred to as HBT going forward. So HSAM is a vulnerability and HBT is the NSA exploit. Both HSAM and HBT take advantage of a flaw within the Pioneer ME software, which is a software developed by the British company Pioneer. SIGINT reports indicate that unknown actors independently discovered and sold HSAM on a darknet forum. Lastly, the incident response firm ResponseCo has been assigned to Tenebris to address this cyber incident.
Now, the suspension of Tenebris screening services has forced airports to revert back to standard security procedures, and as a result, congestion during the already busy holiday season will likely increase, and this could cause delays and other issues for airports and travelers. All Tenebris customer data, including personally identifiable information and flight records and biometric data, could have been exfiltrated by the malicious actors. It can be assessed with high confidence that records were exfiltrated and at least one record has been falsified. These altered and falsified records could allow for illegitimate border crossing. We assess with medium confidence that due to their similar exploitation mechanisms, the discovery of HSAM may lead to the discovery of HBT. In addition, it is possible that HSAM could have been leaked by an insider threat who is familiar with HBT. Any company that uses Pioneer ME software is also similarly vulnerable to incidents exploiting HSAM. U.S. privacy laws continue to be a point of contention with the EU. The Tenebris cyber incident will likely further these tensions, and this could hinder the ability for us to adequately work with the EU if this is not managed properly. One of the classification types for reports pertaining to HBT is no-foreign, so it is unlikely that our allies, such as the Five Eyes, are fully aware of the NSA's usage of this exploit. And lastly, if it becomes known that the NSA had known about this vulnerability and did not inform Pioneer, then that could lead to significant backlash from the EU, UK, and other international partners.
This task force has identified three main strategic objectives. The first is to investigate the origin, purpose, and extent of damages from the Tenebris cyber incident. The second is to mitigate these effects and to work on ensuring that similar attacks do not occur. The third is to reassure our international partners and allies, especially in the EU, of the United States' commitment to a safe and secure cyberspace. In order to accomplish this, we recommend the following policy options. Each policy option is placed into one of 3 sections, and each section corresponds to one of the 3 strategic objectives. The first one pertains to investigation. Within the next 72 hours, it is recommended that a multi-agency task force be created composed of CISA, Homeland Security Investigations, the TSA, the NSA, Cybercom, and the FBI. We'll go back to this task force in just a minute. Homeland Security Investigations and Customs and Border Protection will work with impacted countries in order to investigate if any unknown actor leveraged this incident to facilitate a cross-border travel. It is recommended that the NSA reviews reports of HSAM in order to assess a potential downgrade in classification, which will allow these documents to be seen by our Five Eye partners and them to better assist us in the investigation. It is also recommended that the NSA discontinues its usage of HBT to reduce traceability of counterintelligence operations to the United States government. Within the next 1 to 8 weeks, it is recommended that the previously mentioned multi-agency task force will investigate the extent of data exfiltration, the unknown entry into Tenebris's customer database, the identities of the buyer and seller of HSAM, and monitor dark web chat forums for any intelligence relating to this investigation. It is also recommended that the NSA begins exploring alternative counterintelligence options to HBT, as there will be at least a temporary drop in counterintelligence information due to its discontinuation.
To address our mitigation objective, we recommend first, in the first 72 hours, that US CERT works with Pioneer, Tenebris, Response Co., and the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, known as ENISA, to share intelligence between the group and to secure digital infrastructure by making sure that the malware is no longer spreading through Tenebris's systems and can't jump to airport systems, removing any backdoors so the culprits can't get back in, and strengthening the network defenses of Tenebris's systems in the US, UK, and EU. We also recommend US CERT work with that same group to develop and deploy a patch for HSAM to prevent future incidents using the same vulnerability. We also recommend the Office of Management and Budget and DHS coordinate to provide additional funds to the TSA to increase personnel at screening stations to mitigate the congestion that's going to occur. We also recommend TSA make an announcement about travel delays due to this. We recommend DHS and FBI work to flag Tenebris customers passing through security to provide additional screening and ID verification. And then in the next 1 to 8 weeks, we recommend US CERT and DoD work with NATO to identify any allied systems that use Pioneer ME, so those systems can be watched and the patch deployed to them as soon as it is made available. We also recommend DHS and Tenebris work to identify the victims of the data leak and set up a registry where people can go to see if they've been victimized or not, and if they have, attaching to that registry educational resources on how to protect yourself from identity fraud. We also recommend, to address our reassure objective in the first 72 hours, that state, DHS, and FBI attaches in impacted countries work with their counterparts to identify what needs they have and provide support. And then in the next 1 to 8 weeks, that US CERT work with ENISA to identify what needs they have and provide support and assistance in forensic investigation and remediation efforts, and that state works with the EU and UK to open up lines of communication to discuss privacy issues, the Russia-Ukraine peace talks, and reaffirm US dedication to Europe. Thank you. We will now take your questions.
Thank you so much, team. And now start the 10 minutes of Q&A for our judges.
One quick question. Under mitigate, you described considering having DHS and the FBI to flag Tenebris customers for additional screening. Anybody who pays for something like Tenebris probably, has a lot of money and is gonna not take kindly to being pulled aside for additional screening, you know, like regular travelers. But at the same time, you wanna set up a registry. So how do you reconcile the two things? Like, we're gonna treat these victims with additional suspicion because of that one falsified record, but at the same time, we're going to try to present ourselves as helping them. So how do you reconcile those two things?
So with the Tenebris is shut down, so the Tenebris customers are already going through legacy screening.
Mm-hmm.
It would be more of upping the random screening checks, yeah. But also with the registry, we can let them know that it's just additional screening and we're looking for, or we're just wanting to verify ID. We could also work with Tenebris to inform their customers that this may be happening with the additional screening, that they might get, with the random screening, it's checking for ID verification as well. And then with the registry, it's setting up to, when people go to look at the registry, they'll have been informed of what's happening. So the fact that the registry exists means that the Tenebris customers know that this could have happened, which makes the additional screening make sense.
So there, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So has either Pioneer or Tenebris actually asked for our help?
So to the best of our knowledge, they have not yet asked for help. We would be reaching out to them and offering them our assistance.
Okay. And has Tenebris gone public yet with the extent of the breach?
So not to the extent of the breach. We do know that they have talked to their internal staff and notified, so they did notify us about that. I don't know if they made a public announcement to the general public, but there are other parties such as
Somebody's gonna notice if they can't go through their specialized screening at the airport.
If they have the SSSS on their
They have already contacted partner airports and shut down Tenebris in those airports. So that has already happened.
That's gonna blow up in the media really fast.
Yeah, so the 14 million records were exfiltrated, and one record was falsified. How do we know this record was falsified? Has it been exploited through illegal entry into a Schengen country or the U.S.? Why is this falsified record important?
This falsified record is most important because of what that potential creates, and not because we are fully aware of the entire circumstance with that record. And at this time, we are still investigating whether or not that what that record is and whether it has been used to cross borders and such. But it has been independently confirmed by both Tenebris and the TSA that it does in fact exist.
And just to add on to that, so we don't know if anyone has actually used this yet to facilitate any kind of travel. We also don't know what actors would or have the capacity to. So it could be potentially anybody that could take advantage of that.
Yeah, quick question on your recommendations here. First 72 hours and then 1 to 8 weeks. Is that 72 hours inclusive of the first week of the 1 to 8 weeks? And essentially, are you recommending that we just do all of these things now?
So the first 72 hours are the immediate first 72 hours starting from now going forward, and the 1 to 8 weeks begins after the 72nd hour. And can you remember your second question, please?
That was it.
Okay, I heard something.
No, I might have other questions, but colleagues.
Also about notifications here, so, if you recommend NSA discontinue use of HBT, are you going to notify any partners about its existence, or only about HSIP? And if so, who's doing it?
Yes, so we want the NSA to review these documents to see if they can maybe downgrade the no foreign classification on them. we don't want to interfere with the NSA's operations. So if that's deemed possible, then we do want to downgrade to give our partners a heads up on what's going on. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, I mean, it says here though, to review reports of HSAM, not HBT, I'm talking specifically about HBT.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. So HBT, we currently do not want to, it's still being in use, and that would be up to the NSA. We would want them to provide them the flexibility with it, so along with assessing HSAM, they could also assess HBT as well.
Is there a reason why you think it was an insider, or that's a possibility?
Other than it just being a very high-risk threat that it presents, we don't have explicit evidence or intelligence as of right now to confirm that risk. We just felt that it would be such a high risk that it is important enough to investigate that as a possibility.
So what's the real danger that if we only reveal HSAM and offer our help and all that kind of stuff, that our EU partners ever come on the idea of HBT? I mean, let's say they patch against HSAM and you know, maybe they're not seeing some other weird traffic that they never figured out. What's the real risk that they're gonna figure out that we had an exploit when we were using it?
So there certainly is a real risk. In fact, the reason why they didn't originally disclose HSAM was because of the similarities to HBT. So that's why the NSA should also assess HBT along with HSAM.
Well, why couldn't we just stop using HBT and not say anything about it, but only talk about HSAM? I mean, maybe I'm not understanding, but what's the real risk that they're gonna figure out that there was an HBT?
If I understand what you're asking correctly, I believe we wouldn't be disclosing initially that we used HBT, only that we found it when we were working on investigating the two vulnerabilities after the initial attack, or the initial incident.
Okay, but HBT is an actual exploit designed to take advantage of that one vulnerability that we're now also calling HSAM.
Yeah, so it's worth pointing out that exactly like you said. So HBT is an exploit. It's not a vulnerability. So HSAM is the vulnerability. So the method, the exploit that attackers are using could vary slightly, depending. And so that would how similar that is would determine the likelihood of whether they'd be able to differentiate between HSAM or HBT.
Just for clarification, HBT and HSAM are not, HSAM isn't the vulnerability that HBT is using or exploiting. They're just similar enough that a patch for one would affect the effectiveness of the other.
Okay, yeah, no, that's pretty muddy, thank you.
I mean, I think another question that comes up is, like, has Tenebris indicated what confidence, what does it need in order to restart screening services?
So they voluntarily stopped screening services. So it's not a technical issue as far as them not being able to use these devices. It's them worried about concerns of privacy.
Right.
So once they feel like they have got rid of any actors inside of their systems, and then they can safely store that information, then they would be okay continuing their operations.
Cool question.
Oh, yeah, so you have an interesting recommendation to send a senior official if tensions increase between EU and the US. What are the escalatory conditions that might prompt that?
So this is, we're early enough in the incident that we're not really sure how much this will increase tensions between us and Europe, just the breach itself. But also, if it were to come to light that the NSA knew about HSAM and we said nothing, that's likely going to increase tensions much more. And so if we already have the State Department, their attaches contacting their counterparts in the impacted countries, but if the tensions get worse, especially much worse, we can deploy high-ranked officials it could be the ambassador level, the state level, or head of state.
It's time, folks.
Until, if it came to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.